Alrighty, we're going to get started with the Unit 3, Section 3 notes. And in this section, we're going to talk about how to solve equations using multiplication or division. In Section 2, we talked about using addition and subtraction as those were inverse operations. In this section, we can also use multiplication and division because they are also inverse operations. So if you look here, we have the division property of equality, which basically means if we divide both sides of the equation by the same number, we're going to get an equivalent equation. So if you look at that example, 3x equals 12. If we divide both sides by 3, the 3's will cancel, leaving us x equaling 4. Because 3 is multiplied by x there, we can use the inverse operation or division to simply get a solution there. So let's look at a few examples together. We have negative 6y equals negative 84. In order to get y alone, we're going to use the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. So in this case, we're going to divide both sides of our equation by negative 6. Negative 6 divided by negative 6, that cancels, leaving us y equaling 14. Positive 14 times negative 6 does in fact equal negative 84. Same thing with number 2. We can divide both sides by negative 21. When we do that, we have negative 6 equaling P. Negative 21 times negative 6 does give us a positive 126. Looking at number 3, we're going to divide both sides by 15, as that would be the inverse operation of multiplication. That leaves us C equaling 40. On number 4, we're going to use our inverse operation again and divide both sides of our equation by 11. That leaves us F equaling negative 9. So 11 times negative 9 does in fact give us negative 99. So just like we can use division, we can use multiplication because, like I said earlier, they are in fact inverse operations. So if you look in this first example, x over 3 equals 12. We can multiply both sides of our equation by 3, which leaves us x equaling 36. So 36 divided by 3 does in fact equal 12. On our first one, let's look at number 1 together. Because w is divided by negative 12, we're going to multiply both sides of our equation by negative 12. Negative 12 times negative 15 does equal 180. So w equals 180. Looking at number 2, we have z divided by negative 18 equals 3. We're going to multiply each side of our equation by negative 18. This leaves us z equaling negative 54. So negative 54 divided by negative 18, that does in fact equal 3. I will let you try number 3 and solve for f. I'm going to go ahead and do number 4. Because we're dividing by 13, we're going to multiply by 13 on each side. That leaves us x equaling negative 65. Be sure to remember your rules for multiplying and dividing integers. So a negative divided by a positive does equal a negative, but just be sure that you don't forget those rules for multiplying and dividing integers. They're still important even though we've moved on. If we look at this first word problem, it asks us to write an equation to model the situation and then solve. So we have 64 people showing up for a volleyball tournament. we want to write and solve an equation to find how many 4-person teams could be formed. So if there's 4 people on a team, we have 4. We don't know the number of teams that we can have, but we do know that we have 64 people total. So 4 people on a team times the number of teams, which we're hoping to find, equals 64. Because we're multiplying 4 times x, we're going to do the inverse operation and divide both sides by 4. X does in fact equal 16. So we could have 16 4-person teams at this volleyball tournament. Our next word problem is talking about driving with a full tank of gas. So a salesperson starts with a full tank of gas, meaning it's all the way to the top, and they drive her car 363 miles, and then they refuel. So we're going to assume that her tank was empty when she refueled. So she can go 363 miles on 1 tank of gas. It takes 11 gallons of gas to fill the car's tank. So to go from 0, it takes 11 gallons to have that full tank. So if we have 363 divided by 11, that gives us 33 miles per gallon. So she can travel 33 miles on every 1 gallon of gas. The last section is just a review section looking at integer operations. So negative 19 plus 40, we have a negative and a positive, so we have different signs. So we're going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger absolute value. So 19 from 40 is in fact 21. And in this case, 40 is the larger absolute value, so we're going to keep it as a positive, and our answer is positive 21. Number 2, we have a negative and a negative added together, so our final answer will still be a negative. When we add those together, we get negative 33. Number 3, 3 minus 18. We know when we subtract, we add its opposite, so 3 plus a negative 18, and that is in fact negative 15. Number 4, we have negative 12 minus a negative 10. We know that when we have minus minus, that turns into a plus, so we have negative 12 plus 10, which is in fact negative 2. Looking at number 5, we have a positive and a negative, so we know when we multiply these together, our answer is in fact going to be negative, and when we multiply these together, we get negative 70. Number 6, we have a negative times a negative, so we know our answer is going to be positive, and when we multiply these together, we get positive 184. Number 7, our answer is going to be negative because we have a negative divided by a positive, and when we do that, we get negative 6. And lastly, on number 8, we have a negative divided by a negative, so we know our answer is going to be positive. Negative 36 divided by negative 4 is in fact positive 9. So that concludes the Section 3, Unit 3 notes. Again, if you have any questions about how to use inverse operations, whether it's addition or subtraction or multiplication or division, be sure and ask your teacher, as we want you to be confident using these skills moving forward.